So welcome everyone. Some of you may know us, some of you may not. So I'd like to do a quick introduction to VDB. Hold on a second. So our community, we launched the app 5.5 years ago. The app itself is a marketplace. It's strictly business to business. We integrated B2C tools, so retailers were armed with a tool not just to source, but to sell. And over the years, we started, of course, with mine diamonds, and we added lab-grown diamonds on about two and a half years ago. Colored gemstones was 3.5 years ago, and jewelry's been on for about 2 years. So it's really a one-stop shop for the retailers. What positions us different is that we are very, very easy to use, beautiful interface, far more visual than our competition. And we really, as I said, arm them with tools to source and sell across the counter with their customers. Moving on though, we are also not just a marketplace, but we're software as a service. All of our development is in-house, done by our team. And we have over 20,000 members now worldwide in 126 different countries. And we also have over 900,000 items listed across the 4 product categories, including lab grown. And as Howard said, we have I believe almost 100,000 lab-grown diamonds listed currently, in addition to the other product categories, which makes us the largest marketplace for lab-grown in the industry. That has brought us both accolades and some division. And so, you know, certainly we know the complexity of navigating, having both product categories, both the mined and the lab-grown on our platform, but we did it because the customer was demanding it. And that customer being the end consumer who was going into the retailers and asking them about the product. And it was critical for us to service the retailers so they could answer the questions and help the customers make an informed choice on the product they choose. So I'm going to start out just with a quick overview of 2020. Obviously, everybody knows what a roller coaster year it was. You know, in many cases heartbreaking, in many cases stressful for business owners, stressful and horrible for those who had family who were sick. But it also, you know, the silver cloud and the very dark lining of 2020 was the diamond industry and the diamond jewelry industry prospered. And that has been attributed to the fact that discretionary dollars were shifted away from travel, from going out to restaurants, from also events. You know, there were no concerts, no things that people used to enjoy and spend money on. And the wonderful thing about diamond jewelry is it does make people feel good. So it was a logical choice that people, when they were looking to celebrate an anniversary or celebrate a graduation, they looked to jewelry because it's, you know, it's beautiful, there's intrinsic value in it. And so thankfully, the jewelry industry did quite well in 2020, and particularly so in the independent jewelers, and those that are freestanding did by far the best. The other interesting thing that I saw was because of you know, workplaces going virtual, was the trends also shifted in the types of jewelry people were buying. So certainly engagement rings and engagements in general were through the roof, because, you know, historically, whenever there's a downturn in the economy or anything bad going on, people love to think of hope. And so engagements are hopeful and you know, optimistic things to do and to, you know, make commitments to one another. So engagement rings were very, very, you know, successful in sales. However, because of Zoom, as you know, and all of the other online portals, interestingly, the earrings and pendant categories exploded. So a lot of retailers had tremendous sales in earrings and were scrambling to get the inventory in to satisfy the need. And you know, as we see, everybody is wearing earrings and pendants because that's what you see online. So getting back to VDB, you know, I didn't want to focus solely on lab grown because I have, over the years that we've been carrying it, what bothers me about its introduction into the retail marketplace is the division that it's caused in our industry. And I don't believe that we need to be attacking, the mined diamond and lab grown diamond people should be focusing more, in my opinion, on spreading the message and the story of what makes them unique. The reality is they have some overlap in their audience, but they also appeal to unique audiences who are interested in the stories themselves. So I urge in the year of 2020 for every mine diamond, every lab grown diamond person to be putting forward the messages, putting clear, accurate, authentic messages forward to help the retailers choose their supplier partners and to help the customers make informed choices. So starting out, we did some analysis on our last year searches, both in lab grown on the left and mined on the right. And interestingly, they're not so dissimilar. We ran it based on searches because we have more data on searches than on necessary requests that were sent out. And when you look at it, the rounds obviously are always prime. There's 43% of the sales in 2020 in lab grown were done in rounds, whereas 52% in mined diamonds. Ovals were also the number 2 in both, 14% in lab grown, 9% in mined diamonds. Emerald cuts were 7%, 6%, princess 5%, 5%. So a lot of similarities obviously in shape. What I found more interesting is when I dug into our inventory levels and noticed that the inventories are not supporting the demands. So certainly as diamond manufacturers are bringing new goods to market, where I noticed the deficits in lab grown are in cushion shapes, emerald shapes, princess, and radiant. We have excess inventory in rounds and excess inventory in pairs right now based on the demand of what's being searched and what's being requested. So certainly a need for the fancy shapes to be pushed into the marketplace as available. In mined diamonds, there were a little bit fewer disparities, but where I caught some were actually ovals, where the sales were, or the searching was happening at about a 9%. The inventory is only at about 6%. So the demand is exceeding the supply right now. Excuse me. Cushion cuts similar in mined as in lab grown. Cushion cuts, the demand is exceeding the supply, and radiant cuts as well. So similarities and certainly shifts in the shapes that are appealing to the customers, and certainly round still being king, but the need to support the fancy shapes as well. Oops, pardon me. In terms of carat weight, no surprise to me that both mined and lab grown diamonds, the most commonly searched size is 1 to 1.5 carat. But what became very interesting is beyond that, the number 2 category for lab grown diamonds is 2 to 3 carat. And that's tying into the value proposition and the customers wanting more for their money. In mined diamonds, it was the 0.5 carat to 1 carat. So, interesting, similar and yet different. And that goes back to the comment of, by offering both, most of the retailers we're talking to are picking up incremental business because they're attracting a customer that either can't afford what they want in mined diamonds or is interested in the technology of the lab grown. Moving on to the next slide. Diamond color requests. So for lab grown diamonds, F color, G color, H color are the top 3, G, H, and I in mined. And again, that's simply tying to the value proposition. People aren't trading down when they buy a lab grown. They have a budget. So what they're doing is they're getting the better qualities or the bigger size when they're buying their diamonds. So I know that there's been a lot of division in the industry, and I've heard from people, well, I don't want to carry lab grown diamond because I'm going to trade down my customer. But the statistics are showing that the customer doesn't want that. They're just either going for the mined diamond because of the intrinsic the natural phenomenon that brought it about, the romance behind the mined diamond industry, the natural diamonds, or they're going for the value proposition of lab grown. Searches by budget, again, similar, tying into the other statistics. For the higher priced goods are being searched in mined diamonds. People understand the value can be held there. that, you know, the mine diamonds can be, you know, especially in the more rare stones, that there's intrinsic value to the long-term ownership value. So the higher values there are selling, and the lower values in lab grown are being searched and found, whether it's for small side stones to supplement a center stone or a color gemstone. But for both categories, the 2,000, 5,000 budget is the number 2 search. So a lot of similarity there. So really, you know, looking at this, we're not, you know, we're comparing apples and oranges oftentimes when we're thinking about these two different products. We're also comparing potentially, while I said overlapped customers, incremental business to be had by servicing the customer who is either on a tighter budget or wants more for their money with the lab grown. Or, you know, there's other, you know, particularly in the male audience, there's a lot of attraction to the technology and the science behind the growing process. You know, I speak to mine diamond or natural diamond suppliers and manufacturers every day, as well as lab grown. And when you hear them tell the story of their product and their belief in the product, you know, it's a very different story. And that translates down to the retailers and honestly, straight down to the customer. And one of the other things that I found really fascinating is more than half of the retailers I speak to, when I ask them why and how and when they added on lab grown diamonds, it was because the customers had heard about them and were coming in and asking questions. So the retailers in some cases were proactive, added it because they knew that it was an emerging trend. And the other reality that I find interesting and pretty fascinating that I want to share is lab grown diamonds from an industrial point of view have been grown for over 70 years. So they're not new. You know, it feels new, but they're really not. HBHT diamonds in jewelry grade, you know, investment grade, jewelry grade, HPHT has been grown for 30 years. And CVD diamonds have been successfully grown at jewelry grade for 20 years. So while we feel that the last 5 years it's really exploded, that's because the technology has come forward. But really the technology has been there. It's been a long time in the making. And, you know, which makes me feel that, you know, by coexisting and defining our stories and potentially offering both, the reality is the lab grown market is going to continue to grow. Excuse me. So going into the slide, some things to consider. And of course, most of you already know this. Lab grown and mine diamonds have identical optical, physical, and chemical properties. This is, some people like to refer them to as synthetics, but they are not, you know, truly a synthetic. They are a lab grown diamond with the same properties. You know, another thing that as a retailer, it's important to make sure that you have detection device or you have a lab that you can send things to, that you're identifying and keeping your inventories uniquely separate. That's critical because at the end of the day, if anything is sold and is misrepresented, that is a big liability. So the retailers that are carrying lab grown are very clearly delineating it in the cases, keeping it incredibly separate, you know, testing goods that are coming in and out. And that is important because we never want to mislead the customer or misrepresent anything that we're selling. When I talk to the independent retailers, we're hearing a lot of interesting things. And each year, each month, more and more who last year told me that they were not receptive to carrying them are becoming more and more receptive. And it's largely those who were resistant, their customers are starting to ask about them. So it's important for us as a trade, whether or not you want to carry them openly, whether you just want to service the customers, but get educated. Really learn about the differences, really learn about the product that you want to sell so that you are more educated than your customer. Because the danger is some of the millennials coming in know more than some of the retailers I speak to. And that's the deficit we never want to have. You know, we're the educators, we're the experts. So whatever they come in with, we should be able to add to. 47% of the VDB retailers, we focus on primarily the independents, from the small mom and pops up to the mid-sized chain. 40% of our retailers are either carrying or advertising both mined and lab-grown diamonds. So that's a huge jump from the year before. Those who offer both, as I alluded to earlier, are seeing greater profits and most importantly, incremental sales. I did a poll of several of our retailers that are working both in both markets, and they're seeing up to a 35% increase in incremental sales by offering both. It does vary by marketplace. Other people, it's only 5% at this point. And then in others, you know, the last point being, some stores are outperforming. I have one retailer that we work with on a daily basis. Their sales are now 65% lab grown. And this is in a very traditional Midwestern market, 65% lab grown, 35% mined. And I have another retailer on the West Coast out in California that says, try as he might, he almost cannot sell a mined diamond anymore because he's in a technology area and the people who are coming in for his engagements, and he does service a younger market, really are attracted to the value proposition and the technology of lab grown. So, you know, so for vendors to be infighting and dividing the industry, it's a very dangerous thing, because at the end of the day, the two parties that we need to, that we're all here for and we need to service are obviously the end consumer and the retailers. And if we don't arm the retailers with compelling stories and good information and reliable, trustworthy, you know, authentic data, then the retailers are not going to be armed to sell to the customers that we're trying to reach. And we don't want them. We personally at VDB, we service retailers. We don't necessarily want that business going online. We want to arm our retailers with everything they can to succeed and satisfy the customer. And in theory, not satisfy, but also delight the customer. We are seeing tremendous growth in the lab-grown diamond sector on VDB. It is our fastest growing category, but that's natural. It's the fastest growing category within the marketplace in general. But we're also hearing, the other thing I found really interesting is, as I'm speaking to the retailers, is certainly the younger customer, the engagement customer, is attracted to the value proposition that they can both afford a wonderful honeymoon and a gorgeous 2-carat center stone diamond for their engagement ring. So the younger consumer is definitely attracted to the value proposition. But interestingly, a lot of the retailers that I speak to say that an older customer is also interested. So there's a lot of customers who are coming in their 40s and 50s, and the wives want to upgrade their wedding, you know, their engagement ring and their engagement set. And they're actually opting for the lab grown diamond because now she can afford a 3-carat or a 4-carat diamond instead of a 2-carat. And for her, she doesn't, you know, she's buying this because this is something that's staying with her forever. So for her, necessarily, the trade-in value doesn't matter again. You know, it may matter, you know, it mattered for her the first time, but it doesn't matter for her the second time. So she's really just going for something that makes her feel good, something that's beautiful. And a lab grown diamond, all, you know, all division aside, is, you know, physically, optically, everything the same. So for her, that ability to have this beautiful diamond that makes her feel good, that's what matters to her. So we have to keep, you know, reminding ourselves that it's what drives the customer that we're trying to satisfy. And if it's a mine diamond, you know, I personally don't think that I would buy a lab grown diamond. So I'm speaking to a category that I believe in, but I wouldn't personally want to buy. There's something about the romance, the history, the fact that, you know, that mine diamond was formed millions of years ago, and that there's no other one like it in the world, is a special thing to me. So, you know, so that's the story that resonates with me. So each retailer just needs to separate themselves from, you know, I can promote lab grown diamond as a you know, technology company and a merchant, because I believe that it doesn't matter what resonates with me, it resonates with the customer. And so I'm working very hard to educate myself on that other product category so I can offer my customer the alternative, offer them good information for them to base their decisions on. But at the end of the day, it's each individual's choice on what is going to work for them. You know, and interestingly, you know, this webinar is tied into our inauguration in the next 4 years. And I look at our industry and it's not so dissimilar from our country. Our country is very divided today, you know, and yesterday on the inauguration day, there was a lot of tense and a lot of, you know, concern that the division would get deeper. So, you know, certainly within the mine diamond world and lab grown diamond world, I'm feeling the same thing. And the reality is we need to come together as an industry. We need to come together as a country. And I'm hoping that the next 4 years brings us all closer together, both in our industry and in our country. So not to be too political, but, you know, the reality is division hurts. It doesn't necessarily help us all grow. And that's, you know, what we're all looking for today is growth in our industry, healing in our industry, helping the customers, helping the retailers. Um, so I've been talking a lot about the diamond story. That is really important. You know, there's a lot of ways to define your diamond story as a retailer, as a seller. You know, I've heard a lot of different stories that resonated with me, you know, within the De Beers network, the De Beers group. You know, I've heard the story about Botswana and how when De Beers went in there 50, or no, I think it was now probably almost 70 years ago, and started mining the diamonds, it was a very undeveloped country, but the diamond industry, when they went in, didn't just capitalize upon it, and they helped build infrastructures, build schools, so that back in the 50s, when they went in, very few children came educated, you know, where it had the opportunity to be educated, but through the diamond program and what they went in and did, they actually turn the country to benefit from this resource, natural resource that they held, build schools, build the infrastructure, and Botswana is in a better place than it was. So if that's a story that resonates with you, that's a story for, you know, and you're sourcing diamonds from Botswana, then that's a resonating story that you share. You know, the Diamonds Do Good campaigns that are out there tell a lot of stories about the different mine diamond companies who are doing the right thing, whether it's for, you know, people who live in an area that they're doing their cutting and helping to elevate the people and the quality of life, you know, whatever it is, whether it's a mining company who is, you know, bringing the land back to its, you know, as best they can after the mine is closed up, you know, everything that we're doing in our industry to leave the world as good as it was when we came in, if not better in the case of people. That's a story that we need to share. You know, we've had some black eyes in the past. You know, the blood diamond we're still recovering from. You know, the Kimberley Act was a step in the right direction to fixing that and giving us transparency and a message to share. But I think we still have a ways to go. You know, and in terms of that, you know, that really just comes down to the retailers, to the vendors, sharing the story, and the story should be authentic, not a story, you know, not a fictional story. It should be a true, factual, resonating story that's going to mean something to the customer coming in, on that side. In terms of budget, you know, I keep speaking to, let's not think that the customer is trading down. The customer has a budget and she's trading her value for the money. And that's where sometimes they're opting to go for lab grown, and other times they're opting to go for mine because the mine diamonds resonate with them. The natural diamond rarity is a huge factor for me. So I put that up, you know, the real is rare. I didn't necessarily love that campaign, but it did resonate with me. And the fact that, you know, the Kimberley mine is no longer mining the pink diamonds are going to become more and more and more rare. So the value there, the intrinsic, scarcity of them is a beautiful thing to me. Sustainability is another very important thing. You know, we want to make sure that we leave the world as whole as when we, you know, dug it up or you know, in theory, grew a diamond. Are we using the best possible energy sources and not wasting energy, and, you know, putting things back so that we have long-term sustainability? That's another thing, especially with the millennials and Gen Z. Sustainability, corporate responsibility, social responsibility are very important for them. When they choose a company or a retailer or a brand to buy, if you're not compelling them with your story of what you're doing to do good, you know, and that Diamonds Do Good, I do love that line, because I think it's very simple and it's very true. You know, if you're doing things to make the world a better place and making money, people feel better spending their money with you. So, you know, all of those things need to come into thought as retailers today. Our customers are much more educated than they were 30 years ago. They're coming in armed with information. Sometimes it's the wrong information, and it's important for us in a very delicate and diplomatic way to steer them onto the right course if they were on the wrong course. But, you know, on the other side of it, most of the time they're coming in with good information, and they just need our expertise to help them make the best choice possible. And that is what sets retail aside from e-tail. So we also need to, so as I've been mentioning, clearly defined and authentic stories. And it's also going to take a lot of training on all sides, you know, so our salespeople need to be trained impeccably with a very clear message so that they know how to sell one versus the other, so that they're not just going to don't always sell to the customer what they're asking for. Make sure they understand all of their options. A good example I have is a friend of mine in midlife was just getting engaged, and he came to me asking for help and advice and pricing on a diamond ring for his fiance. And he was looking for a 3-carat ring, and the budget was pretty good. So I was very happy for her. And I said to him, have you considered lab grown diamonds? And, just because I also know that more is more, and she was looking for a pretty big ring. And he said, I didn't even know they existed. So, sometimes as a retailer, letting somebody know, and the fact is he opted for the Mine Diamond. I said, well, it's just important for you to know and rule it out if it's not something you want. But, we pulled up the prices on the lab grown diamonds and the Mine Diamonds. And for him, the price difference did not resonate. For him, she is, old school. She really wants a Mine Diamond. She loves the romance of it. She loves the history and the rarity. So they opted to stay with their budget for the Mine Diamond. So, but it's still important to educate and make sure that the customer is aware, and that way they know that they've made the right choice for themselves. And that's, points 3 and 4 are offer options, share education, but at the end of the day, let the customer make the decision, because that's where the decision should be held. All right. And, in terms of validating stories, my other concern with the diamond industry and where we've come is we've spent a lot of energy and a lot of time casting doubt and casting dispersions on our competitors, and also making claims that were not necessarily valid. So we've created a bit of distrust in our own industry in doing so. And I think that's a very dangerous thing. One topic that I'm sure you're all aware of is, some lab grown diamonds, when they came to the market, making very, very bold eco-friendly claims that have since been questioned and, truly outright called as lies. So, we really need to, as an industry, stop saying things that are not 100% accurate, because they will always be found out. And so as we've been thinking as a marketplace, how do we create trust? How do we create valid and authentic information? And I started digging into a third-party verification company that's coming up into the pike. They're actually, hold on one second. It's called SCS Global. Oops, sorry. Oops. Okay, so SCS Global. SCS Global will be launching in 2021 their third-party verification of both lab-grown and Mine Diamonds. They've received more interest from the lab-grown market to start, so that will be the first goods coming into the market. But I really encourage the Mine Diamond world to also look into this. It is not comparing, they are comparing apples to oranges. So they are apples to apples, and, not trying to compare how a lab grown diamond can be sustainable versus a Mine Diamond. They're setting up very different structures, very different parameters to be looking at. And really, by offering this certification to manufacturers who are doing good, diamonds doing good, whether they're a lab grown diamond manufacturer or whether they're a Mine Diamond company who are truly doing good, this badge is going to be a third party, a neutral, a unified message that you can trust the message that's being had. And the vendors who get it will be validated by this third party. So it is something I do encourage everyone to look into. There's a couple of others coming up through the marketplace, but they're not as far along as SCS is. So who is SCS Global? So while they're new to the jewelry industry, they're not new to the world. They've been around for 36 years. They were pioneers in the sustainability certification in other industries. They've worked in food and agriculture. They've worked in forestry and wood. So they really know what they're talking about. They're experts in sustainability and certification. They are global. They do auditing, testing, certification, verification, life cycle assessment, training. They also do a very good job of not just, obviously partnering and certifying the manufacturers, they're also certifying retailers to be able to express a sustainability message to their customers. And they're also going to be doing end consumer marketing, but that would be later this year as the goods are really in the marketplace. So over the 36 years that they've been in business, they've done 30,000 certifications. They have 12,000 clients. So a very big company, a very good company to be partnering with our industry. And we're the newest industry for them to go into. So my colleague is going to put information up in the chat on how to contact them to do your own research. We are not partnered with them. This is just a company that we've been following, watching, and listening to, and they're making big differences in the industry. The first vendor in the lab-grown market to be certified will be announced in the month of February. I cannot announce it because that is their place to announce, but that will identify them as a very proactive climate neutral company in the lab-grown world, and validated by this external testing facility, as well as I believe they're also partnering with GCal and IGI as well. But GCal has taken a very big stance in validating and verifying the data with them, along with other testing technology companies. So certified sustainable, and what does it mean? It means a lot of things that resonate with younger customers and older customers alike. So as I said, this is not just a lab-grown diamond conversation. They want to be the diamond, in the entire diamond world. So both mined, lab-grown, and recycled diamonds will have the opportunity to be verified. Provenance assurance. They have set up a system that with 99% surety, they can match the diamonds to a mine, a specific mine, or to a specific origin. They have full chain of custody accountability from the point of origin to the customer. Social and ethical assurance. This one's very interesting because to me, I want to know that child labor wasn't used in manufacturing my ring. If I got the best price, I want to know that somebody was paid fairly for their wages and not taken advantage of. So they are also checking that social and ethical assurance to ensure that the people who are manufacturing our goods are being treated well, that their families are taken care of, that the community is better for the diamond industry. So that social and ethical assurance is very important and resonates with the younger customers. Environmental assurance. Finally, we have a way for a vendor, and there are a lot of lab-grown vendors and a lot of mine diamond vendors who are doing the right thing for the environment. This is now a way for them to be badged as they are indeed doing that and not just claiming to do that. Because to me, sustainability means a lot of things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're helping the environment that you're producing your diamonds in. So they have strict environmental checks and balances. They're going to be certifying companies as climate neutral, not just carbon neutral, which is actually a lower grading. And that's going to be helping these companies validate claims and have an authentic message. So do check out SCS and Certified Sustainable Diamonds. They're going to start flowing into the marketplace. As I said, the first supplier is certified in February and others will follow. The other thing to keep in mind is that the standards that were set were not set by SCS. They were set in conjunction with several, in terms of the lab grown market, they have a large panel, trying to explain how this works. They have a large panel of lab grown diamond growers. There's a combination of CVD growers and HPHT growers. They also incorporated some major retailers into the panel to ask questions, to challenge what standards are measurable, what are truly definable. So retailers were on this panel. Major manufacturers of lab-grown diamonds were on this panel. Obviously, experts in the world of sustainability were on the panel. And also in the last piece, scientists, true scientists sitting there and working with, and GCal was also on the panel. So it was a lot of people who know how the diamond industry works, setting up and marrying together with these experts in the sustainability chain. So they made it measurable, they made it actionable, and they made it realistic.
Sorry to break in, but you're going to want to start accepting questions in the next.
I am, Howard. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, comprehensive and unbiased is really the message that they're trying to send. And the reason being is everything I said. The younger customers, the millennials and Gen Z, they're educated, they're coming in, they know what they want. So whether you go with SCS or whether you go with another third-party verification, or you simply research and choose your vendor partners properly, then you can have a message you can trust. And Howard, that is my last slide. So thank you so much. I'm going to open it up to any questions you have. I also want to share my phone number. It's 908-400-1631. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm on WhatsApp or cell or text. You can also reach me via email at liz@vdbapp.com. And certainly any of the other members of our team can answer questions you have. The platform itself, you know, the other piece of, you know, going e-com, and we're speaking e-com in this, excuse me, my voice is a little bad. You know, e-com, the purpose of this entire presentation, educational presentation that the Centurion team is doing is tying into e-com and VDB, going back to the original, not to plug too heavily, but we also have the best web integrations in the industry. So if you are in the mine diamond market and you have a diamond search up, we also can supplement it with a lab-grown diamond search to help your customers do their research, qualify themselves online before coming into the store to buy. So I do open it up to questions. And Howard, is somebody going to be reading me the question?
Yes, I'll be reading the questions. So we have a great question from Deval to start off. She asked, with all the lab-grown diamonds on VDB that you mentioned, if we find the right stone, lab-grown or mine, how do we get it for our customer? And if there is a way to show it to the customer?
Absolutely. So Deval, when I touched on earlier is our marketplace is very visual. So we've urged for years now the vendors to upload images, videos. We upload those into the app so that when the customer finds the perfect diamond, the customer being the retailer, they can now source the perfect diamond and then go into a markup mode and show that diamond to their customer. They can either show it in person, they can email it, they can SMS it. And with that markup mode, they've applied the markup and the retail price that they want the customer to see. So it makes it a very adept selling tool in that way. And then within the app, if they want to contact the vendor, they have multiple ways within the app itself to contact. We have in-app memo requests, buy requests, hold requests, and also a contact button. So if you just want to call the vendor and ask a little bit about them, ask where that diamond came from, how they came about, is it, you know, ethically or sustainably sourced, that we also have that contact button. But we encourage everyone to use the in-app buy memo holds because it streamlines communication and it keeps everything in one place, which keeps our retailers very organized. Thank you for the question.
Great. So Erwin has the next question. He wants to know if a CVD rough is grown in the US, but stones are cut in India, what should be communicated as the origin of the finished lab-grown diamond?
Oh, I am not an FTC expert. But my belief, and don't quote me on this, is you can only say American grown. You cannot say American made because made is also the cut. But the FTC has released, and I haven't read up on it enough lately, but they had released the standards on that. So technically it is not. Jewelry in general is very difficult to be called American made because also the provenance of the gold, the provenance of everything would have to have been mined here in the US and to be called made. So it's unfortunately the FTC made it very, very difficult to do that, but you can say American grown on that type of good.
Great. Thank you so much for the question. Our next one is from Meyer, and they wanted to know, where do you see the best-selling categories in lab-grown diamond?
What kind of categories? I'm sorry, can they clarify?
I think it's where, like the location of our best-selling categories, but I'm not sure.
The location. That's a tough one because if he means, is it US based? Is it worldwide? You know, what I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Meir. I was the guy who was asking.
Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you, and very interesting stuff. Things you're saying. I want to know what You know, I'm a manufacturer, I'm a site holder, I'm a diamond manufacturer. For me to enter to that category of lab ground diamond, I want to see that for the long term, there is a value for manufacturing. And price, usually it's very fluctuated when we are talking about the small diamond categories. So my question is more particular about the carat size up. Do you see a stabilization there in price and in demand and in product?
I wish I had the perfect crystal ball to answer that. You know, the reality is that technology is very expensive. So while the prices have come down significantly in the last several years, and we do expect them to come down more, we don't expect them to come down at the same rate because the technology is very expensive. It's very difficult to build. But what's going to happen is that the scale, you know, as prices come down, the manufacturing capabilities are going to go up. And as they perfect the manufacturing, they're going to have more volume. So there is opportunity though to, you know, with the volume, you're going to offset the profit. But I do think that from the retailer point of view, they're very anxious to maintain profitability. They do not want to erode the way we have in the mine diamond side. And I do believe that that is, you know, at least for the next 5 years, there's not tremendous erosion in the pricing because everybody along the chain is desperate to maintain profitability. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but you know, the reality is if 100 new growers come into the market, which I can't see happening in the next 5 years because of the complexity of the technology and the expense of the technology, if 100 new come in, then we'd be dealing with a glut of inventory. And of course, when, you know, just common economics are going to say with a glut of inventory, you're going to have lower, you know, lower prices because it's going to exceed the demand. So, you know, that side we can't control, but I don't think it's going to keep, it's not going to go down to nothing, which I've heard a lot of people say.
Elizabeth, how do you see that in the next 5 years? Is that a niche of 10% or 25% from the overall market?
You are holding me to something that I am not qualified. If I was in the true growing community, I could probably answer that. I could just, you know, I can just say I know that everybody is trying very hard to protect profitability of this sector so that we don't end up in a true price competition side and eroding margins as we did with mine diamonds. But that side I can't speak to, but okay. Thank you for your question.
Okay, great.
For at least one more, and then we're going to go to breakouts.
Okay, so we have one more question from Mark, and he wants to know, why do you think that the demand is so high in non-round shapes, remembering that the fancy shapes are more difficult to polish?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. And I actually think it ties into what I keep hearing from, so, you know, if we're to draw, and of course I'm drawing assumptions here, if we're to draw the assumption that in general, the younger consumers are buying the lab-grown diamonds and they're buying them because they're differentiating themselves. And we've also heard repeatedly that they like unique things. So that to me ties into, you know, and that uniqueness is also driving the a huge demand towards the second half of 2020. I saw a huge demand for color gemstones, and that's also being driven by this younger consumer who wants something different. They don't necessarily always want a diamond for that engagement ring. So color gemstones are emerging. And I do think that is what's driving the fancy shapes in lab grown, because they want something a little different. The rounds are certainly classic. They're certainly beautiful. I personally prefer rounds. I'm wearing them today. But the customer wants something that her friend doesn't have, especially the younger customer. And I think that is what's driving the demand. And the manufacturers will, you know, they'll have to catch up with the production to satisfy that.